Добрий день. Ми вітаємо.
Good afternoon. Welcome you at Ukraine Media Center to current forum. I'm Elena Frolova, and now we'll have a briefing by Andriy, Gerus, head of parliamentary committee on energy sector. Of course, the key topic at the moment is the shortage of fuel and what could car owners expect, but we'll also discuss other subjects in the energy sector. Mr. Gerus, you are welcome. Good afternoon. I will then start with that issue of oil products, which is of interest to many people. Indeed, we have had a difficult situation today, which has been caused by several factors. The first factor is this. Kremenchuk oil refinery has practically stopped, and that's quite a big oil refinery which provided diesel fuel and petrol to the Ukrainian market, does not operate because of rocket strikes by Russian invaders. Also, we see that there have been air strikes, rocket strikes against oil depots. About 15 oil depots have been destroyed or damaged because of such rocket strikes, and that's again about, first of all, significant amount of fuel destroyed, and also it has been more difficult now to provide storage for oil products. The next factor is almost all market has reoriented to supplies from Western Europe, because neither Russia nor we don't buy fuel in Russia nor Belarus, and I hope we will not buy it there. And supplies by sea also do not come to Ukraine. Sea has been blocked. So fuel is supplies to Ukraine from European countries, and there are certain logistical difficulties. First of all, about tank trucks and tanks and the whole logistics and how those vehicles should come to Ukraine. So we are adjusting those activities. We understand that the market has been reformatting and readjusting, and we hope that in the nearest future the market will readjust and there will be much more regular supplies from European countries. One more factor is, of course, about regulating and about liberalizing the pricing, and the government has already made certain decisions about liberalization of prices so that market mechanism, supply and demand would work and competition would work. Maybe we'll need some further liberalization. This issue is analyzed by the Ministry of Economy and specialized agencies who have been working on that. So as a result of all those factors, there is certain tension, and this tension has become even stronger because there has been a certain mental, psychological factor. There was that amount of fuel we had 3 weeks ago, and there is still more or less the same amount of fuel we have today. But the number of car owners who want to fuel their cars, the number of consumers who want to buy that petrol immediately, even to make some reserves, because probably people are worried the situation will become even worse. So this factor too has contributed to those waiting lines, because cars are moving and they take 10 liters in each station at different petrol station. I think this sort of behavior is a bit emotional. It's not rational, because the situation will not become worse. Maybe for one more week the situation will be a bit tense, but since mid-May we'll see some improvement, because some suppliers are coming, it has already been contracted, and this fuel is already being transported to Ukraine. And since mid-May and in second half of May, the situation will improve, and we'll have better, quieter situation also emotionally. And these waiting lines will disappear, and you will be able to fuel your cars in petrol stations without those long waiting lines and without the tension we see in the market. Can we ask questions? Yes, you're welcome. I will ask the first question, and I will give the floor to journalists. Let us discuss a bit the grid, the electricity. We know that Ukraine has joined the European Union grid a month and a half ago. What's the situation at the moment? How it's operating? What are the results of this integration into European network, and why Ukraine did need it? Indeed, we have cut from the joint grid from Russia with Russia and Belarus, and we joined the European NCE grid. This is quite a difficult process. It's not easy, but for Ukraine and for Ukrainian consumers, it went almost without any hitch. Nobody has felt any difference, and that means that our energy sector was quite independent, and we could easily drop that eastern and northern direction and join our western neighbors, our western partners. So currently there are no flows of electricity with Russian Federation nor with Belarus, but we have flows with those countries, EU members. In particular, there is also now the export of electricity to the Republic of Poland, and in several months the volumes of export and import should increase. If there is an excess, and we do have excess of electricity in Ukraine, we will be able to export that electricity to European countries, and if there is a shortage in Ukraine, say if there is excess, if there is surplus, we will be able to export to European countries, and if there is a shortage, we will be able to import electricity from European countries into Ukraine. We will be able to import the required amounts of electricity. So now, in terms of generation, in terms of availability of that electricity, the system has been operating in a stable way. Where there are certain difficulties with electricity supply, those difficulties are caused by the fact that because of shelling by Russian army, there is some damage of electricity infrastructure. So it's about transformers, it's about substations, it's about transmission lines. It's not about availability of electricity as such. There is electricity, but it should be transported to the end user. So in those areas where there is no military action, no combat action anymore, for example, in Kyiv Oblast, in Chernihiv Oblast, in most part of Sumy Oblast, in those areas, the electricity supply is being restored, and most consumers, most users already receive electricity. In combat areas, there may be some damage. First of all, I mean Donetsk Oblast, Luhansk Oblast, and some part of Zaporizhia Oblast and Kherson Oblast, as well as Kharkiv Oblast. There, in areas where there is combat action, it's quite difficult to repair the grid, to repair substations, so there are some problems, but it's not because of lack of electricity, it's because the Russian army is shelling our electricity, our transmission lines, and our power substations, our transformers, and as a result it's impossible to transport sometimes this electricity to end users. Also, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that a lot of work has to be done with all those things. Often it needs even heroism from employees in the electricity sector who have been restoring those transmission lines. And the whole country should pay for utilities, utility bills should pay electricity bills, because that money is spent to buy coal, to buy nuclear fuel, which we will now be buying from Western companies. And that money is to be spent on repair and recovery of energy infrastructure. So it's very important to have financial stability, to have financial discipline. So if you can pay, please pay your utility bill. If you cannot pay them in full, please pay at least in part. That's also a contribution to stability of our country. It's contribution to our victory, because when the whole country has electricity, has natural gas, has water supply, it helps in stable functioning of our country, and it's also a contribution to our joint victory. What is happening about coal in our power stations, power plants, and generally about coal supply to infrastructural facilities which need coal? What about coal? Since the electricity consumption sharply dropped this spring, currently we have sufficient amounts of coal. More to it, we even have some excess of coal. We can see it because we see that coal is accumulated in warehouses of Ukrainian thermal power plants, and currently there are even some initiatives to export that coal to European Union countries. You know that, for example, Poland has completely refused Russian coal, so if instead we start supplying Ukrainian coal to Poland, I think it will be positive, because it will be about getting foreign exchange profits to Ukraine, and also companies will have income and will have better financial stability, and that will be about integration of Ukrainian energy markets with the European ones. So currently there are these opportunities, and as far as I know, some companies are considering this opportunity of exporting coal to Europe, and currently we don't have any problem with coal. The only thing is this: we remember that the heating season will start in several months, and by start of, we have to prepare for that heating season. So we have been monitoring the accumulation of coal in storage in warehouses, and that issue is also under control. I think that everything will be fine about accumulating coal. We have already started preparations for the next heating season. I'm sure we'll prepare for it in time. So there's no problem with coal at the moment. We have sufficient amounts of coal for Ukraine, and even partially, I hope we will be able to export that coal to European countries. I have a question about provision of critical infrastructure facilities with electricity. We saw that, for example, Tesla company has sent some batteries for some facilities, but do you consider this strategic issue of certain autonomy? We understand that there is war, and this war will take much longer than a week or two. So does the Parliament and the Cabinet of Ministers consider this issue in a strategic way? Look, in those areas where we don't have any combat action, where we don't have shelling by Russian army against our territory and our facilities, in those areas the electricity supply is restored rather quickly in various ways. Usually it's through the unified grid, and the main way or the reserve way, well, in some way it's supplied to critical infrastructure facilities. Also, there are other ways. For example, it could be done through accumulation, when there are some accumulating batteries that store that energy accumulated, and then they can supply it. And the Verkhovna Rada has passed the law on the systems to accumulate the electricity. The President signed that law this spring, and indeed such items can be added to our grid, to our energy system. And now Western partners have been working on various options how to help Ukraine in this area. In particular, from the UK, we have received some assistance, whereby they provide us with special equipment, which is also helping us in generating and supplying the electricity. And of course, there are also petrol-fueled and diesel generators. It's also important for our military, and even for some territories. Sometimes there is no other way to supply electricity other than using diesel generators or petrol-fueled generators. This is also an important part, and we try to help in that way, to help our military and to help those territories who suffered because of combat action. Also, there is a question about international cooperation. We know that Ukraine has been making much effort to isolate Russia in terms of oil and gas. Could you describe some prospects, what are the developments there, and what are the nearest prospects of such embargo? Well, in the nearest future, in the short run, it's first of all about the sixth package of sanctions from the European Union, whereby there will be the crude oil embargo, and there will be some transition period of several months, and it's even expected that there will be some exemptions for Hungary and for Slovak Republic, because currently they depend a lot on those supplies of crude oil by pipelines from Russian Federation. And we hope that that package of sanctions will be approved, and immediately after that there will be the next seventh package of sanctions considered. And there are also some additional ways how to affect Russia economically, in particular through imposition of import duties for a broad range of goods. Now, whole attention is on the sixth package of sanctions, because we see attempts of Hungary to block that package of sanctions, to veto it. So we hope that the whole Europe will be united. All European countries will understand that if there is a threat in Europe, if there is a country in Europe which declares wars and invades neighboring countries, then there should be some consolidated solidary response from the whole European Union against such countries. So we expect that this sixth package of sanctions will be approved, and immediately after that the next seventh package of sanctions will be developed, so that Putin and Russia will understand that it will cost them a lot, and they should understand what will be the price, that it will weaken them economically, so that Russia will be unable to run this war for a long time, and it will bring us closer to our victory. Thank you. Dear journalists, if you have any questions, please introduce yourself and be brief. I'm Vladislav Obok from Ukrinform. I have two questions. First about petrol, and then, if I may, about electricity. to follow up on Alina's question. About petrol, my question is this. The Cabinet of Ministers stated that it's expected to use 70,000 tons of petrol and 40,000 tons of diesel fuel, if I'm not mistaken. How will those amounts be distributed among market participants? Will there be equal access to those, or is it about some special amounts for utilities, for the military, and so on? And my second part of my question is about cashless settlements, cashless payments used now by many or maybe all petrol station networks. Do you think that this is a way out of these problems when there are direct contracts with businesses, or is it some way to circumvent those restrictions imposed by the states? Because we see some information that some businessmen who enter into such contracts for cashless settlements and to buy some petrol tickets, they pay much higher price than what we see in petrol stations. To ask your first question, indeed, the priority number one for our state is to provide fuel for various agencies and critical infrastructure, for the military, for medics, for state emergency service, for national police, national guard, and so on. So the state, in my view, the state has to provide fuel, first of all, to those special agencies and to those entities and those units who now ensure the defense capability of our state. This is our priority number one. And to a large extent, that is the reason of those restrictions on petrol stations. If you analyze the situation, we see that the special trucks, special vehicles of such entities are fueled in petrol stations, and for usual lay citizens there are certain restrictions. You have to understand the situation, because indeed the priority is for those special agencies to be able to operate, and for our army, our military, to have sufficient amounts of diesel fuel. And you have to understand that it's a temporary story. I'm sure that it's just about some, when there are those emotions, when people wait in lines in different petrol stations to get fuel, they are worried that soon the fuel will not be there. I am sure that soon the situation will stabilize and will improve. About your second question, indeed, currently there is a situation where the wholesale price is even higher than the retail price, which is not a typical situation, because usually wholesale price is lower than the retail one. Even earlier, all companies were selling their oil products at wholesale prices for businesses, for companies. So even before that they were selling it, and now they're selling it. But now we understand that there are more people wishing to buy at a wholesale price if they can get those volumes, and there are more companies willing to sell it, because if the wholesale price is higher than the retail one, of course more people are willing to sell at wholesale price. And there is that issue of regulating or liberalizing the retail market. Certain liberalization has already happened, and I think that, again, over time, when the market gets supplies, first of all, in the wholesale segment, it will be more balanced and the price will go down. I think it will become in mid-May. We have to understand that there are certain market factors, and we have to understand that this regulation we had did work in our previous situation when we were not buying those energy resources from Europe, and when the Ukrainian oil refinery in Kremenchuk was working, and when we had our oil depots, and when there were no rocket strikes also against railway infrastructure, because when railway infrastructure is shelled, it's more difficult to bring oil products from Europe to Ukraine. So the whole combination of those factors created those results. And then there are those side effects that we see. Also, I'd like to repeat that there is a significant emotional factor when emotions create that peak demand in petrol stations. Thank you. Next station. Good afternoon. I'm Mikhail Potocki from Poland. You mentioned coal a bit and electricity and fuel. I'd like to ask you about natural gas. What's the situation with natural gas? Not only in terms of today's situation, but also about the prospects of the heating season. Thank you. The situation with natural gas at the moment is also working. that's a working situation. Because of invasion of Russian Federation, because of war waged by Russian Federation, a lot of companies have stopped, so the gas consumption has dropped, both from businesses, industrial companies, for example, metallurgy plants in city of Mariupol. We all understand that Ilyicha plant and Azovstal do not operate in other cities. Many plants have stopped. Also, the heating season has stopped. The spring has come, and gas consumption has dropped significantly. So the gas produced in Ukraine is not all of it is sold by gas production companies. A large part of it is brought to underground storage. So currently we are pumping gas into underground storage. We understand that it's probably be insufficient for the heating season, and in summer we'll have to buy some amounts of gas in Europe, and we'll have to pump them into Ukrainian underground storage. So now we have to already start our preparations for next heating season. And it's already happening, but the Cabinet of Ministers, the Minister of Energy and Naftogaz company, they have all been working on those preparations, and we are now discussing what sort of legislative changes we need, and if something is needed, we in the Parliament are ready to make those legislative amendments to run efficiently and effectively those preparations for the next heating season. Any more questions, dear journalists? Okay. The last question, you're welcome. Last question, we have to finish.
And last question is for me, and of course, and I know there's a lot of trouble here for the gas or natural petrol or whatever. Obviously, the EU have supporting a lot and have give big commitment to support your country to get a petrol from EU support. And how long, I heard about EU have a little bit problem with the petrol as well. So how long they can just continue support, and what kind of promise they have to commitment for your country of petrol matters. Okay, my second question is the natural gas. Of course, we know the natural gas is still running from Russia across the Ukraine to the EU, and your country and get natural gas from EU support as well. We heard about you pay some of country the petrol money, or they support you to get this gas and back to Ukraine. And I want to clarify, is this true or not? And thank you very much.
About your first question, indeed, EU countries help Ukraine a lot. Some of them help very much. Some other countries, because of their certain reasons, help a bit less, to a lesser extent. But we do appreciate that support. And speaking about our view of that support should be for as long as we need to win in this war, to achieve victory in this war. We will be glad if we manage to have a victory in May or in June, but we should also be ready for a certain long run, exhaustive long run. And if all European countries join their efforts, and if Ukraine is supported and joins efforts with all European countries, then we can run for longer, and we can run better than the Russian Federation, which is also lacking support from all countries worldwide, except for some small and often non-democratic countries. So we are working towards our victory, and support is not just for the sake of support. Support is in order to stop Russian aggression that we have in Ukraine. Russia has invaded Ukraine with war, but tomorrow Russia may do it to Estonia, Latvia. We hope that it will not happen, but we understand that it may happen, and we understand that Russia has a lot of negative attitude against Poland and other European countries. So we have to be united, we have to act united, and this support is just for one goal, for victory. It's to stop the Russian aggression, it's to stop to stop empire ambitions of that inadequate, unhealthy Russian leader, that Putin. Now the transit of gas and procurement of gas. Ukraine is buying gas in the European market. It has been happening since 2014, 2015. We have been purchasing gas in the European market. We understand all too well, you know, if you would want to buy Russian gas, we would ask Kremlin to buy that Russian gas at the eastern border of Ukraine. But nobody never did run any negotiations to buy Russian gas at the eastern border of Ukraine. All our contracts, all our agreements are with European counterparts. Indeed, various types of gas, natural gas, come to Europe from various sources. There is Qatar gas and American, US gas and Norwegian gas and also Russian gas. This is not a secret. But our fundamental position is that we will not have any contracts, any agreements. We will not deal with Gazprom. We will not deal with Russia, because for a long time they have been using natural gas as their political weapon. About transit, indeed there is transit. As soon as the European countries stop buying Russian gas, we will gladly stop that transit of Russian gas to Europe. So again, the same way I answered your first question, it's important to have some united position, joint position. As soon as the European countries stop buying gas, we stop transiting it, and it's resolved. So we support that embargo for both crude oil and oil products and coal and natural gas. And I hope that over time we will reach the situation where both Ukraine and Europe will completely drop Russian energy resources. Last question, and we have to finish. Viktor Melnikov, CGTN. Please tell us whether your parliamentary committee has run any analysis of how prices can change for first priority goods and services, and how the utility fees and tariffs can change. Currently, no changes in utility tariffs are planned. It's planned to maintain the tariffs, the fees that we had. I already said that the issue number one, the priority number one today is to maintain that payment discipline, that those utility bills should be paid at those fees that we have at the moment. It's important because some people cannot pay, they lost their homes and they have moved, they have become displaced persons, but also there is a large part of people who can pay. And it's very important for everybody to be responsible, to realize their responsibility, to understand how important it is for Ukraine that the energy sector should operate in a stable way. It's about energy resources, it's about repairing the infrastructure, repairing grids, electricity grids, gas distribution networks. So currently the issue is we should all understand it, and we should all pay our utility bills at those fees we currently have. And I think that it's very important. It's our joint contribution that each and every citizen of Ukraine, the Ukrainian, can make. About reviewing those fees, no, there are no such procedures in place at the moment. Thank you very much. We have to finish. I'd like to remind you that you can monitor our announcements in our YouTube channel and our Telegram channel. Tomorrow we'll have an intense day with 4 briefings. Thank you, Andriy. Thank you.